are back and better than ever. This is Politics and Policy with Jeff Guillot here on the Highly Capitalized Network. I am here with my good friend and fellow Long Island cannabis dad, Bryan Fields. Now, one of the reasons that I decided to start doing this and start doing more media in the cannabis space was I had the opportunity a little bit earlier this year. I think February it was, to appear on The Dime, which is Bryan's excellent podcast. I'm now returning the favor he has shown me by having him on as a guest here. So I guess to start, this is one of the bigger podcasts in all of cannabis land. And you guys have had the who's who on the industry on for these long, informative conversations about the industry. So tell me how you got started with this thing. What you're doing right now and what's coming next.
Sure. Well, I appreciate being here, Jeff. Thanks for taking the time. And I kind of feel like the coaching tree now has spiraled out and we've got ourselves like a nice thing. So I appreciate that ton. The podcast got started about.
You're like Andy Reid, and I'm like a number of great coaches.
I love it. I love it. Listen, we
Yeah.
can just spiral the tree out. The podcast got started 5 years ago. And when we got started, it was just so that Kellen and I could learn. For someone like myself coming new to the industry, I understood the complexity of it and tried to understand the nuances of it, but it was just so complicated. So
Yeah.
having conversations and trying to learn from people was the best way. And now I can tell you 5 years in, we've done about 260 episodes. I still know nothing. I've learned a ton and I've recognized how nuanced this industry is and how complicated the challenge is, but more so the strategies that these entrepreneurs are deploying in order to overcome these regulations and the obstacles that they have on a regular
Oh
basis.
yeah. Well, I mean, it's an industry that is so duplicitous in its regulation from state to state, from municipality to municipality, that it's tough to track. It's easy to get burned out. It's really easy to get frustrated, and like there's just a lack of government leadership on this that caused some people to lose their money and get out, and but those who can weather the storm can still do quite well.
Sure, but I also think that there's different approaches, right? Early
Yeah.
on, it was growth at all costs. And I think what happens, the industry is moving so fast that sometimes they recognize they have a leak in their system and they're not sure, do we fix this leak now with like real plumbing? Or we just duct tape it up and keep it moving? And the speed of which the industry is moving on, I think is allowing this to continue to be duct taped up, which I think is one of the core fundamental issues of the industry as we currently operate.
I am the son of a man who believed that there is no solution duct tape can't solve. So even though Jimbo Gio does not spend a lot of time on LinkedIn listening to podcasts, shout out to him because I was taught from an early age that like you don't need to go to the mechanic and get that muffler fixed by a professional. Duct tape will do for quite some time.
For sure, maybe he could operate successfully in the cannabis industry.
I mean, when my brother and I came home late at night and an entire sleeve of Thin Mints disappeared, he knew what was going on.
Yeah, it's pretty
He knew
clear
what was
what's
going
going on. The eyes are red, and you're not a lifeguard. You're trying to wonder, like, how you're saying that.
Yeah. All of a sudden, the Discovery Channel is fascinating. It's stuff like that. He figured it out.
Those are the best.
So in addition to the dime, you also have your hands in the processing side of the business, which to me is fascinating because processing to me is like the undiscovered country. I know very little about it. I know it takes a certain amount of scientific expertise to be able to make all these cool products. I am a man who has really no skills. You're witnessing my one skill right now. I can't make stuff. I can make an omelet. I can't make a vape pen or distillates or whatever it is. So I would love for folks out here to learn more about what specifically you're doing with processing slash extraction.
I love the question. And I think people need to understand first how complicated and complex extraction is. It is extremely, extremely challenging. And then when you bite size it down to individual aspects, you can see why it is so hard. For starters, most teams are writing things down by hand, entering into the system later, and then a third person is trying to aggregate that information to see what the trends are. The problem with that is there's time delays, there's handwriting errors, and there's no analysis that is quick enough to say, okay, we made this mistake today. How can we fix it? Instead, what happens is it takes 3, 5, 7 to 10 days, and then they get the information. They say, we have to make a change in the future.
So it's kind of like, just to oversimplify this. So like when I'm cooking something, my family's French Creole, so oftentimes I'll just grab a little bit of this and a little bit of that and a little bit of that, and oh, cool, it came out delicious. And then I think back to myself, like, how the heck did I actually just do that? I really should have written that down. And like the ability to produce that at scale would be really difficult because I'm not really even sure what I just did.
Sure. And it gets even more complicated too, right? Because they write these things down and they try to stay within those parameters. And then when you're talking about tracking costs, right, how much each item costs is really, really complicated. And these fragmented data systems kind of just compound down. And without a digital tool that's immediately capturing this information, it really becomes complicated. So what we've done is we've digitized that entire process so that teams can now import the information directly into a digital system. And we've layered AI on top of it to start analyzing how did Grease Monkey yield? What was the difference between operator one and operator two? So instead of waiting a month to get the information, everything is digitized right in front of you in real
Oh,
time.
cool. I can see that's saving a ton of time and money when it comes to this process.
It's disgusting. And when we interviewed a lot of the leading teams, the one area that I was shocked to find out was how much money is spent on just data entry alone. And then the problem isn't even just that, it's the compounding effect of what happens post analysis, right? Because if you're biomass in, oil out, and you're not getting a good yield, you really can't make adjustments after the fact because you're waiting too long. It needs to be more in real time so you can really cost control and tighten up. And I think it all starts with visibility, which is the same principles that oil and gas and these other industries use. They have got direct visibility into their process in real time so that they can catch their waste and they can get alerted before the problem compounds and they lose their margins. Because there's only so much a team can do. What you hear is get cheaper biomass, get cheaper biomass, get cheaper biomass. And that's right. That's a good focus to go. But at a
Right,
certain point,
but then folks realize everyone's looking for cheaper biomass, and the folks that control the biomass are going to drive the price up.
right. And at a certain point, you really can't go any lower. So where can you look next? How can you improve your operation? Because there's massive margins if done right. And there are teams in the space today that are doing it and are absolutely crushing it. But there's other teams that are surviving just batch by batch and saying, okay, how did we do this month? What should we do better next month? But that's too late, especially in an industry that is as tight as ours. You have to be more granular. You have to know how much each batch costs, and then you need to know what is the margin on that batch. And that all starts with visibility and cost control.
Got it, got it. So where are you in the process of this now? Are you trying to scale this thing, trying to raise some money?
It's live. So there are operators today that are using it and they're using it successfully. There are other operators now that are still skeptical. They're still thinking to themselves, hey, Bri, like I have a process. We write it down on a piece of paper, and then Mary enters it into a system later, and then I look at it in a month. And sometimes it's green, which means it's really good and we yielded good. Other times it's red. We want more green than red. Okay, well, how do you get more green? Don't know. We're not really sure. Maybe it's the biomass, maybe it's the operator. All of it is so it's so
It
kind of
sounds so woefully inefficient.
that's the challenge. And I think the problem becomes is that nobody's recognized that this is as complicated as it is, and we have to rip it down to its studs and figure out what does every single item cost. Because when everyone's in cost control, you need to know exactly how much every element costs so you can streamline it so you can make more proactive decisions versus reactive decisions.
For sure. I mean, it's not unlike shopping on a budget. Like if you're going to splurge for the good stuff, then you're going to have to backfill that by using cheaper stuff. But you need to know what's going to yield a good result, what you can take out and what you can't. So I because it's what I know. I've been making cooking analogies, but
It's no, it's a great one. It's a great one. The other one that I've heard is like the lemon analogy, right? Where it's like you're squeezing a lemon and you're saying, did we get all the juice out or is there more juice to get in? But should you get another lemon or should you get more juice out? All of it kind of matters on that end product and it all
right.
really varies. So if you're standardizing your system and you're using tools in the process, it kind of eliminates the tribal knowledge, which everyone uses like the wizard analogy, which is like Jeff is our wizard. He sets the recipe, and we always do what Jeff says. But the problem isn't what Jeff says. Its problem is when Jeff is sick and Charlie comes in. Charlie doesn't have Jeff's wizardy. He needs help. So what they use tools to help streamline those decision
Right.
making process.
Yeah. You can't have one guy do the cooking all the time. It's not scalable.
No, it's not scalable. And what you've seen is these teams try to go into 3 or 4 different states simultaneously, and they're trying to take that same recipe that they have in Pennsylvania and move it to Michigan and moving it to Arizona. But the challenge is even wider than that because the incoming material, the biomass, it varies in potency. So your recipe example that you gave before can't even be standardized because that incoming material isn't always the same throughout. It's a
Well,
plant.
I've got to think that the environmental conditions you're working in between Arizona and Pennsylvania are quite different too, and that plays a role.
Right. Every single variable kind of compounds into the problem. We're talking about the system control, the solvent recovery, the purity of it. All those elements kind of layer on top. And then you've got this reactive decision making, which is no wonder why teams are just kind of like estimating these elements because it's just so complicated, especially when you don't have a centralized data system to track everything all in one.
Well, you heard it here first, guys. If you want to centralize your data, if you want to perfect your wizardry and save money, this is your man. Bryan, very much appreciate your time today. Once again, this is Politics and Policy with Jeff Guillot on the Highly Capitalized Network, wishing you a fantastic day.